every student is hating biochemistry. I don't know many people who will say like actively, biochemistry is a fun subject, don't you think?
I have
So people don't
never,
usually.
I have never met a person who said that that biochemistry is a fun subject.
Hello, everyone. I am Subhav Ramnani, your host for the MAM Show, a podcast series where we dissect the life journeys of people in the medical field and try to learn and gain from their knowledge and experience. So, today we have a person who's achieved some major milestones even before entering medical school. So, this person has cleared NEET UG exam with an All India rank of 885 and with a score of 613 from a total of 720. That's phenomenal. So, this podcast will be divided into two parts. So, it's going to be long. So, grab your popcorn and enjoy the show.
So, Anuj, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience today?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Anuj Pachel. For those of you who don't know, I'm a second year medical student, that is MBBS student, at Government Medical College, Nagpur. So, people who are not from India, Nagpur is a city in Maharashtra, and Maharashtra is a place in India. So, yeah, currently in second year, currently in the fourth semester actually. Yeah, that's about it. And I hope that you are all doing very well in quarantine. I hope that you have been utilizing this time to be being productive and making the best use of it. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on this show. I'm really excited. To be honest, this is my first podcast ever that I said yes to. So thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I'm really glad you accepted our invitation and you're on board with this podcast. So, talking about quarantine, how like students always ask like I'm not able to go to medical school. I'm missing out on my practical knowledge, my dissections in first year. So, how can I cover up for it virtually, online, or something?
Okay. So the thing is, most of the practical knowledge which is given in first year is usually replicated throughout the years in medical school. For example, if you're studying practical
Yeah.
physiology or practical biochemistry, these are gonna come back subsequently in second, third, all the years they're going to come back in some
Yeah.
form or the other. The only thing which will not come back is the dissections, and that is the most fun
Yeah.
part of first year, I think personally. So
Yeah.
I
I
found
agree with you.
I found a site in first year actually. It's called as Biodigital Human. I don't know if
Okay.
anyone of you knows that, but it's like a virtual human body is there with every single detail, and we can just on a click we can strip out the structures. For example, if you want to study the neck, you can just take out the skin on one click, then you can take out the platysma, then you can go about taking out different fascias of the neck, finally you reach the thyroid gland. So the thing is, that site is absolutely for free, so that's a very big advantage over here.
Wow.
So for anatomy, I suggest that you use extensively Biodigital Human. It's a free resource. They're not sponsoring this podcast, obviously, so don't bite us for that. And I
I
think
wish they do though.
yeah, even I wish the same. So if you're missing out on dissection practicals, that is the one thing to go. The other thing is, when I tell people that you should read Grey's Anatomy, the usual response I get is that there is no need because it's such a big book and everybody's afraid of that big book supposedly. But what they don't realize is that the quality and the quantity of diagrams which is given in the book will really help you understand anatomy in a better way. And people usually go running towards memorizing anatomy and memorizing a certain topics, but when you really understand it, there is no need to memorize it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I follow. So if you're missing out on dissections, it's Biodigital Human followed by Gray's Anatomy diagrams. That is what I would do if I were missing out anything close to that. And for physiology practicals, there are some great books out there. So if you can find any handbook for practical medicine like Algappan or
Yeah.
Hutchinson, so these are the books that I have. And what I did in first year itself is that whenever physiology practicals are approaching, there were three books which I use. There is one G.K. Pal, it is very famous in India, and these are
Yeah.
the two other clinical books. So basically, that practical physiology is a very small derivative of practical medicine. So I feel. So you can read the topics from there, and you can then simultaneously read for example, you're reading JVP, jugular venous pressure. So instead of
Yeah.
just reading about what are the things that raises it plainly in physiology, like heart failure or something else which raises it, you can go in medicine and read about how it raises it. So there will be a complete correlation. You won't have to memorize the things. So if you want to do for practical physiology, then I would suggest reading very, very small pieces of clinical medicine. That would really help. And for biochemistry, well, biochemistry is not not really that difficult, to be honest. So the manuals, lab manuals, or any other manual which you have, manual for practical biochemistry, if you do read
Yeah.
that, that will be particularly useful. That I think for practical subjects. And like you asked about the quarantine period, how we are making this quarantine. How is your quarantine going actually?
My quarantine is going pretty productive. As you can see, I'm filming a podcast with you. So I'm also studying, and I think, yeah, I'm entering my final year. So this is kind of my last break before I graduate, and I add that doctor to my name, which I'm still very scared about. But yeah, I think it's going well. But I need to ask you, can you give us some tips, to stay productive in quarantine, and to stay productive at home when you cannot go out and you cannot meet your friends and all?
Okay, so I'm just gonna tell a little bit of a story here. Okay, so initially when
Yeah.
quarantine started, all of our schedules were fixed before quarantine, that is. So we used to wake up properly at like in the morning, not in the afternoon, and we used to sleep in the
Yeah.
night and not in the early morning. So I think the most significant factor which comes into play when you are deciding how your day is going is the point where you sleep and the point where you wake up. I feel it
Yeah.
personally. If you have the control over that part of the day, because for most people who are sleeping 8 hours, I don't know how many people are sleeping 8 hours. People are sleeping usually 10 hours in quarantine. So people who are like
Yeah.
spending 8 hours, that is a third of their day sleeping. If you have that control of one third, 33% of your day, then the rest 66% can be manipulated in your own way. So what I do is that I don't sleep that much. I sleep like 5 hours, 6 hours max. So when I sleep, I try to wake up as early as possible in the morning. So waking up at 7 or waking up at 6 or sometimes even at 5 if you want to. It will
Okay.
definitely be difficult for a week when you're starting to do it. It's not like you're going to listen to this podcast or see this podcast rather and go and just be like next day चलो 5 बजे से उठेंगे हम अभी रोज. ठीक है तो that won't happen. What will indeed happen is that you will get headaches for a few days, and then after 7 or 10 days you will get completely used to it. So the thing is, I want every one of you to listening who are feeling like they are not getting enough time to be to continue their studies, or like they are feeling tired the entire afternoon, wake up early. Because if you wake up at, let's say, 7, then before 2 you get like 6 or 7 hours of like ultimate productivity, and you can channelize that 6 7 hours to do more work than if you were to do 10 hours starting in the afternoon. So wake up
Yeah.
early, sleep early, and the thing will definitely take some time to develop. Personally, uh, I had some lectures to give at an academy. They are not sponsoring this video
Yeah.
again. So what I did was that I used to wake up at 6 because my lectures were scheduled for 9, and I used to study
Yeah.
my subjects for 2 hours and then 1 hour for an academy. So that's the way I developed it. So force yourself to do some activities which make you wake up early. For example, cycling. Don't go out with friends. Okay, you can just cycle on your own, and something very active, so that you have to actively wake up, or maybe schedule some posts or schedule some videos, do something creative. So just make yourself wake up early. That's my number one tip for being productive in quarantine.
Productive.
And second of all is divide your day and schedule it properly. If you don't have a proper schedule, I talk about this lot. So if you don't have a proper schedule, what will happen is that you will start to lose track of time, and once you lose track of time, everything goes haywire. So make a
Yeah.
schedule. Okay, I have to do 2 hours of MCQs, then I'll have to do 3 hours of theory. This is a 5 year schedule and you have to follow it. Not entirely on the hours, you can divide it on the basis of topics also. Okay, chalo, I'll have to do CNS in pharmacology today, then I'll have to do CNS in pathology. So, in a way, just divide your day into segments, and those segments you relive. And for people who are feeling like some subjects are difficult, it usually happens that this is the golden opportunity to tackle all the subjects which we are feeling difficult. For example, I personally feel like forensic medicine sometimes goes like this if I'm not paying attention, and my attention span is
Yeah.
very low in that particular subject. So what I try to do is I do this 30-minute sessions. So 30 minute may seem a very short period of time, but I'm going to give an analogy over here. Okay, so imagine that you are sitting in an examination which is of 3 hours. In that 3 hours you're in the zone. Okay, you're not getting any distractive thoughts, you're not feeling sleepy, you're not distracted. So that 3 hour zone is the best, most focused part of the day, right? So I simulate that 3 hours session into a
Yeah.
30-minute session. And what I try is that in that 30 minutes I want to do my maximum. So 30 minutes may seem small, but there is so many things that you can get done in 30 minutes. I was inspired to do this by Elon Musk. Elon Musk actually
Yeah.
does this for 5 minutes. So he has 5 minute sessions, and what he does in those 5 minutes is
Yeah.
much more than a normal human being can do in like 30 minutes. But then again, we are not
Yeah.
Elon, and 30 minutes works for me. So those are the few things that I'm doing to keep this quarantine happy, or rather productive. Apart from that, do enjoy this because you won't get a vacation for this duration ever in your life. So yeah,
I completely agree. Especially
so
for first year students, who may be stressed entering medical school from your normal school after giving NEET and all. You'll be like, oh, first year, there's so much to study. I've never seen these big books. Like anything comes close is the Etsy Verma of physics or something like that. But yeah, I think this is a golden opportunity to stay productive and enjoy your time.
what are
So,
you doing to stay productive?
I'm doing to say I've actually built up a habit. So it was obviously a bit haywire when my online classes started, and I was like, oh, I gotta wake up. And because I was out of tune, as you said, when these holidays started, it was very uncertain. It was a period where we didn't move to online classes, and also we didn't go for our practicals and everything. So we were like just sitting and waiting for a university, to give us an update what's going to happen. So those I'll say that 1 or 2 weeks, like I was a night owl, I can say. And yeah, I had lost. I was still studying every day. I was still maintaining my streak. I call this a streak. Like it's been, I think, 200 something days. I've studied every day, and I've not missed out on a single day, be it my birthday, New Year, my mom's birthday, dad's birthday, anything. So yeah, that streak was my driving factor. That even if it's for 30 minutes, even if it's for 1 hour, I got to sit and study because that's what I'm here for. So yeah, I think that drive, you need to have that drive, a goal. And yeah, as my online classes started, everything came into sync, coming, waking up early again, studying, and the whole day kinds of fits into itself because I've been doing this since a long time, and the classes helped, this to structure my day, I'll say. Yeah, so that's about it. So we have some great tips to stay productive during quarantine and while you're at home. So let's dive now into first year of MBBS. So as I know, we have three subjects in India in first year MBBS, which are anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry,
Biochem.
right?
Yeah.
So let's take these one by one. I know you've mentioned some amazing resources already about anatomy, but still, how can one make this subject easier, like because it has a plethora of information, the muscle
Right.
innervations, the I don't know what all, and there are different approaches to study it: head and neck, lower limb, or you can go, full musculature, skeletal. There are different approaches. So, how would you say one can make this subject easier to study?
Okay. So, just to put something out there, anatomy is still my favorite subject. And
Yeah.
I really, really love anatomy because I don't think there's a subject as beautiful as that.
Wow.
With that being said, let's let me tell you some things how I did it. So, first things first, what I learned the hard way is that you don't particularly hate a subject, you hate the teacher of the subject or the way of teaching the subject or the book you're reading it from. That's the thing that I've learned. If you're not reading the subject from the proper book which fits you, there's no golden book like there's one book for everybody. That's not the case. Everybody requires a separate book, and the book which worked best for me was Grey's Anatomy. And if you try it, the student's version at least, then it will definitely work for you. And of course, like always in anatomy, just remember it is about understanding, not about particularly memorizing. Actually, take classes for first year students teaching them anatomy.
Yeah.
I have taken it since I passed out from first year. So I have been teaching them in such a way that they understand the subjects. If you want to learn the nerve roots for let's say brachial plexus, so if we have the brachial plexus over here,
Yeah.
and they are coming from the spinal segments, right? So in each of the spinal segments we have names like C1, C2,
Yeah.
C3. So if I tell you, okay, what is the nerve root for ulnar nerve? You will think about it, then you will say, I don't remember. And if you do remember, you won't know the exact reason. So I think it's C5, C6, and C7. So these are the three roots of the ulnar nerve. Instead of just remembering कि these are the roots, you just look at where these segments are supplying in the dermatomal region.
Yeah.
So this is a very vague example. So C7 supplies over here and this side. That corresponds to the innervation of the ulnar nerve. So you have to be a little more practical. You have to understand the stuff rather than memorizing it. Diagrams are the best way to do it. I have said it 1,000 times. I'll say it again. In anatomy, there's no such thing as beautiful as diagrams. If you draw 1,000 diagrams, it will be equivalent to reading like 1,000 pages. So diagrams are the way to go because every single part you have to know ki how it looks like, what is the places. Instead of just memorizing the relations, you can draw a diagram to know what is the actual structure. For example, you talk about the middle ear. In the middle ear, there are so many different structures. Okay, like
Yeah.
and every single wall there are different structures. So instead of just remembering ki yaar, okay, so medial wall we have the promontory or something else
Yeah.
like that, you can draw a diagram, then you can remember spatially ki what are the structures which are present. And people also use flashcards. I am not a very big fan of flashcards. So you have got a very nice, you have got a very nice video about Anki. That
I can pledge my medical school. I would not have survived without Anki. I would have. I don't know what I would have done. I can pledge my success to Anki. I can sincerely do that.
So actually, it's not a very big deal in India. In India, people
Yeah.
are not much. If you say flashcards in a room full of people in my college,
Yeah.
then many of them will be like, I've heard this term for the first time
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So it people don't really know what these are. And to be honest, I did not even know it when I started my YouTube channel. And as I got to seeing other people do it, only then I got to know ki, okay, we can also do
Yeah.
this. That's not usually the way I approach things, but obviously flashcards are beneficial, like you talked about in your video.
Yeah.
And of course you should try flashcards also. So in anatomy, the only thing that I would like to say is draw a lot of diagrams and read the correct books. That's all. Okay, so that's all about how you make anatomy easy. And of course, go visit that site, Biodigital
Yeah.
Human. The way it will represent everything is that you will be in love with anatomy. That's the thing about it. If you want to see what are the innovations of the muscles of the eyeball, then instead of just memorizing it, you can just click 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 click, remove the
Yeah.
cranial fossa, you will see the eye with the muscles and then the nerves coming through. So, of course, it's a very visual subject. Don't make it a theory based subject, okay? It's a visual subject, keep it that way. Don't try to convert it into a theory one. That's all about anatomy that I would like to say, I think. And draw a lot of diagrams.
Yeah. So you mentioned you teach some students anatomy. Is there any place we can
Yeah.
find your lectures, or is there any place people can contact you that I'm struggling in anatomy? Anuj, can you help me out here?
So actually, see what happens in first year was that I scored decently in anatomy. I actually scored a gold medal in anatomy. So I always had
That's
this passion
amazing.
to teach. So initially in first year, what it was like is that when the 19 batch came in, it's my junior batch. So what happened was
Yeah.
that I told them ki if you want to like study anatomy. So in India, what happened is that initially when the 19 batch got admitted, they started a new curriculum, the MCI. And what they did was the first month they put it as no study, just fun month, which they very happily called as foundation course. No study, just fun.
Okay.
So nobody was studying in that. So what I told them is that maybe if you want to get ahead of the rest of the crowd, you can come to my place and I will make
Teach.
you like, I'll just teach you two books of things in 8 or 10 days. So I taught them
Okay.
superior extremity along with thorax and general anatomy. That's a huge chunk for a first year student who has just entered college
Yeah.
without any knowledge
Yeah.
whatsoever. So that's how it started. And the way it progressed was that I just wanted to teach. So I started a YouTube channel. So in YouTube channel, if you go
Yeah.
back, you see my
Your
second video
initial
is actually
videos are
spinal nerve.
teaching, I've
Yeah,
seen.
yeah, yeah. These are all anatomy. Okay, so I've got spinal nerve, topic, brachial plexus, larynx. So all of these things because I wanted to teach, and gradually what happened was that. Those classes continued till just before the quarantine. Actually, I had a class scheduled for the 24th of April, was it, when the lockdown started, or March?
March.
March, maybe. So 24th, and our prime minister decided that from 24th nobody's allowed to do group gatherings. So my HNF classes got cancelled,
Yeah.
my neuro classes got cancelled. So I took them online. So currently the thing is, I only teach my college students. I mean the students I
Personally,
physically
no.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing because if I start teaching so many students, then first of all, I am not a legit person to be teaching things because I'm just a
Student,
student
yeah.
myself. So as a senior, I teach, and if you want any help, I can help you with the texts. You can like message me. I'll probably respond to them in a week, and I will help you with whatever you need. But the teaching part, I think, is kind of limited right now to the people that I know and the people those are with me. So like not just the college which I go in and my juniors, but all over Nagpur
Yeah.
there are many colleges, right? So those people also get some teaching from me. And now I'm doing it on Google Meet. I've got this graphics tablet
Yeah.
which is sent to me by an academy
That's amazing.
who are not sponsored in this video. So they sent me that graphic tablet, and it's been a really good experience because with that you can draw
Yeah.
and you can teach a lot of things. And again, drawing is what I suggest to everybody. So yeah, that's how anatomy is going on currently
Okay.
here.
So yeah, anatomy, we have some great tips, and also you follow the Feynman
How
technique.
was anatomy for you?
For me, actually, we study it in a whole different approach. We studied the skeletal system first, then the muscular system, and then subsequently. So to me, it was like, what is this? I'm studying bones, just bones. I want to study, more. How do they connect to each other? So I feel this approach which I studied is a bit boring.
Yeah.
But we actually study the clinical part of anatomy, you can say, in a separate subject. We call it operative surgery. It's a part of surgery, but it's basically anatomy in that form in which you guys study in India. So I loved that part. I loved the subject operative surgery because it was divided into systems, and I'm a guy who loves the system approach rather than the subject approach. And as I
Yeah,
said, the skeletal musculature
we know
system.
that.
Yeah, so that subject particularly that came into third year, I guess. So I can say in third year I studied anatomy really well. So for you, okay, so we have a 6 year curriculum, not a 4 year curriculum.
Yeah,
So
I was about to ask you
yeah,
that.
so it came in halfway medical school. So it was like a revision of anatomy, but for me it was like, okay, so this happens, okay, so we do this. So I was like, oh. So yeah, it was a funny anecdote from my medical school. But yeah, so anatomy I relate more to operative surgery rather than the anatomy we studied. But I was grateful I
Subject
had an
itself.
amazing anatomy teacher who helped us in every way possible. So it was not like I failed or something. I passed with a very good position. So yeah, anatomy was
Of
good.
course, yes.
So yeah, next, jumping on to the next subject we have is physiology. So people say, and I think from my experience, I can say, if you don't know physiology, I don't think so, or I don't know how will you understand pathology. And if you don't understand
Right.
pathology
Very correct.
and physiology, I don't know why you studying pharmacology.
Then you're doomed.
So I think it's all connected: physiology, pathology, pharmacology. So physiology being the core,
Definitely.
and it's very conceptual in learning. How do you think students can tackle this conceptual subject? And it's also memorization heavy, but not like anatomy or biochemistry. So it's a conceptual subjects in first year mixed with these memorization heavy. So how do you think people can
Right.
students can tackle this?
Okay. So just to put it out there, I'm not the best at physiology. Um, Actually, I lost a distinction
Oh,
with 1 marks. I got 149 out of
okay.
200. So that's distinction gone with 1 marks. So I'm not the best person who can tell you this, but still I have a few tips. First of them is that, again, read the correct book. And in physiology, you should try to read the review books. Okay. Because if you want to really understand a concept in a very, very short time and a very, very short
Yeah.
paragraph or lines, you can say, then the best books to go for other review books. So there's this book by Krishna Kumar sir. So if you don't know, Krishna Kumar sir is like a very renowned person. He's the one who teaches physiology in Marrow. So Krishna Kumar sir has his book of physiology. You can read that book initially. It's only this thin, like it has got
Yeah.
200 pages maybe max. So you can read that book, and that will put into your perspective that you now understand things, and now you're ready to move forward into much more of a detailed and much more of a conceptual discussion. So first read any small book in which you can know the basics,
Yeah.
just the basics. Okay, you can precondition your mind, and so you know the basics. So for example, you're again talking about management of blood
Yeah.
pressure, let's say. So there's long-term management. You have the RAS, renin, angiotensin, aldosterone mechanism, and a few more systems too. So if you don't even know ki,
Yeah.
what is renin, what is angiotensin, and what is aldosterone, where are they secreted from? If you don't know basics of endocrinology, when you are studying cardiology and management of blood pressure,
True.
you won't understand anything. So the thing is, if you read a review book which sets your mind कि अच्छा ये हार्मोन शायद एड्रीनल कॉर्टेक्स से निकलता है, मैंने पढ़ा था. So if you have that in the back of your mind, then you now understand the concepts in a much better way. And of course, you don't have to go into extreme details of learning physiology कि अच्छा this is the ion which is responsible for the hyperpolarization thing, and this is the channel, then this is the gene which gets mutated. That's not the way to go. Just know the basics very, very well and add on as a layer by layer. Okay.
Yeah.
uh, that's the way to go for physiology. First read the
Oh.
small books so that you can set your mind, you can know what is going on, especially when you're entering from NEET into any medical college. You don't know shit, to be
Yeah.
honest. You
True.
don't know anything.
Yeah.
So read a small book, and if you've read the small book, you know what is going on. Then read any big book like Guyton or Ganong or anything. Just don't push your standards low. People usually underestimate themselves a lot because of what the seniors tell them. So don't underestimate
Yeah.
yourself. You can do it. Everybody does it. So try that thing for a certain amount of time, reading the big book. And another thing which I wanted to tell about physiology is that, whenever you're reading a particular book, try to make a question and answer summary book from that. Not like an entire notes, but a question and answer summary book. So if again you're reading long term regulation, then you can ask yourself, key, where is the angiotensin converting enzyme present? That's a question, and you can write the answer. That's it may be present in the pulmonary
Yeah.
capillaries, and that's where it gets converted. So these are the few things that you should do. Make a Q&A copy for physiology, and I made a Q&A copy. It's kept right there, so you can just read that Q&A copy as many times as you want, so that it will put you in a position where you can revise a lot. And in physiology, like every subject, revision is the key. And if you are not revising it frequently, at least before the end of first year, you should have revised it at least
True.
7 or 8 times. It's a short subject,
Yeah.
it's not a very big subject. Okay, so you can revise it, and the more you revise, the better it will be. So that's my tip for
Okay,
physiology.
so I would like to add a book. So I think I don't know if you know this, but it's a book by BRS. It's a review book again, BRS Physiology by Costanzo, Linda
Yeah.
Costanzo. I mean, that book, I think for me, let's say, I'm not saying it for everyone. For me, that book explained everything so well in a very, a concise manner. So, yeah, I don't know what I would have done without that book. Actually, I discovered it late, but yeah, uh, but still, it was a really good book for me. And if you would like to check it out, even though you've passed physiology, but it would help you out in medicine. So yeah, so now I think we have done anatomy, physiology, and now personally my most least favorite subject, I can say, anything which has chemistry inside, I think it's not for me. So we have biochemistry coming up next. Lots of enzymes, lots of cycles. Is it even possible to retain all of this till, I don't know, when you give your NEET PG, I really don't know how people study it, how I studied it, how I passed it. So yeah, I think this is the subject many students are looking out for. What to do. I can't remember all those enzymes: reductase, aromatase, desmolase. Okay, I'm having a PTSD
Literally
here.
every student is hating biochemistry. I don't know many people who will say like actively, biochemistry is a fun subject, don't you
I
think?
have
So people don't
never,
usually.
I have never met a person who said that that biochemistry is a fun subject.
So again, I kind of like biochemistry. So congratulations, you've now met a person who have said that. So the thing
So
is, so
you're
the
the
thing is
first
about
person.
biochemistry. Thank you. So see, the thing is, we don't like biochemistry because we forget a lot. We don't
Yeah.
have much to read. There's only a Satyanarayan book which we follow over here or something else. It's not really a bulky book as compared to anatomy. Okay, anatomy is much heavier than biochemistry. So obviously it's not the content which makes you hate the subject. What makes you hate the subject then? The problem lies that you forget the subject like this. You
Yeah.
forget the subject the moment you read it. So you've read cholesterol metabolism, you've just seen ki how it is formed, and you're like, lanosterol pehle tha ya baad mein tha. So you're like that because you forget the things so easily. So what I want to say is that if you now remember it, you'll probably like the subject better than you did before. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I'm going to talk about how you can remember biochemistry, in a better way. Okay, so let's go. First of all, if you have seen one of my videos where I talk about you should make a flowchart and paste it in your wall. So I've
Yeah.
got these very big charts. These charts, I have summarized an entire metabolism in one chart. So I've got three charts like this, which have a complete metabolism which has been summarized and put out. So, for example, carbohydrate metabolism, you start with the basic glycolysis, move forward to gluconeogenesis, glycogenolysis, Krebs cycles, everything else included in that.
Yeah.
So that what happens is that once you look at that chart, you see how glucose is getting converted into every single one of these products. Okay, so that's the thing. If you have this chart available, if you make that chart, I highly suggest that you make this
Yeah.
chart. And if you make that chart, then once in the morning, if you look at it just for 5 minutes, the more you look at it, the duration of reading it will be lesser every time. So
Yeah.
the more you look at it, the more you will understand it. And people, since they don't understand and retain biochemistry, they don't ever practice the MCQs for biochemistry, which
True.
I know nobody does that. Okay, there are very few people who have that marrow modules completed for biochemistry.
Yeah.
So the thing is, practice MCQs. Those are the two things. That is, one is make a flowchart and paste it in a wall, and make sure that you look at it every single day. That's the most important part. कि बनाने से not much will happen.
Yeah.
The more you revise it, the better it will be.
Yeah.
And that's the only solution for biochemistry. You can read from any book, the content is the same, not much deviation in anything. And more focus more on the clinical biochemistry part. Okay, like instead of just memorizing the normal value of sodium is 135 to 145 milliequivalent per liter, you can just remember ki what are the conditions in which sodium can go high, in what are the conditions in which sodium can go low, so that in that way you can remember the normal values, also the conditions. So focus more on the clinical aspect. If somebody is saying, okay, there is uchronosis, then what is uchronosis? In what condition it is caused? So instead of remembering ki alkaptonuria, I think it's alkaptonuria, right? So in alkaptonuria there is uchronosis. You can just read much more detail ki, oh, there are some metabolites which get oxidized into black color compounds which get
Yeah.
deposited in the different tissues. So focus much more on the clinical aspect, because they like to go towards the clinical aspect. And this will just help you very much in pharmacology also, because the mechanism of action of drugs on different enzymes, and for if you are reading something like hypocholesterolinemic drugs,
Yeah.
so those are completely towards enzymes. Okay, you have to know every single biochemical enzymes which are present over here, and there are many examples for that. So focus more on the clinical aspect of biochemistry, along with the flowcharts, and revision is very important.
Yeah.
So reading everybody does, and forgetting every single one of us does, but revision not many of us do, and the ones that do actually love the subject. So that's how you go about in biochem.
So yeah, I think if you're not using Anki, Anki is a great way, I guess, to remember these minute details. If you don't like Anki, don't use it. But if you can't remember biochemistry, I think Anki is the way to remember those minute details, the enzymes and the steps. So yeah, we've gone through all the subjects: anatomy, physiology, and biochemistry. So as I know, in the end of your first year, you have what are called prof exams or professional exams,
Right.
which
Right.
we have normal exams in foreign medical schools. So, can you tell us about the prof exams, and specifically how did you prepare for your prof exams and stuff like that?
Okay, so if I'm not wrong, then professional examinations, or prof examinations as we call it, are the examinations which are given at the end of any year. Okay, for example, second year, then you will have the end of that second year, you will have a final examination, an annual examination. We don't have much of a semester based examination over here. We have a much more of an annual based system. So those are the professional or the university examinations as we call them more commonly here. Prof is not much used,
Yeah.
university is much more used. So those are the university examinations which are given at the end of 1 year. Okay, we also have semester examinations that every 3 months we will be getting, we will have to sit for an examination of that particular semester. They will just add up to the grand result for the prof examinations. So okay, this is the basics of how it is done here in India. And talking about the preparation for prof examinations, you should know that any examination has its weaknesses. Okay, there are certain questions which are going to appear every single time. I mean, most of the times they will appear. So instead of doing the hard work of going through the book 17 times before the examination, target those important questions first. Okay, hit the enemy where it is weak. Okay, so that's the weakness of the examination. For if you want to score really good, then of course you'll have to read a lot. But if you want to just pass with ease, then there's an important topics list. Okay,
Yeah.
every single college has that, because every single college has different teachers and different importance, but most of them are basically common. Like if you are reading the inferior extremity, you know that the knee joint is very
Yeah.
important rather than like the dorsalis pedis artery.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So those are the important topics. So go for the important topics first. And if this is the subject, then the important topics will be very, very small, divided in the parts. So first read the important topics PDF, then try to write that in a question answer format as you were to write that topic in the examination itself. So that will be a question. So you will simulate कि वहाँ पे जैसा हो रहा है, you will have to write
Yeah.
it over here. So important topic, hit the important topics first, then move on over to the non-important topics. So in here we have a theory-based examination combined with an MCQ examination. I don't know what is the pattern over here.
Yeah.
There.
It's MCQ.
So wow, that's amazing. So in here we have got a much more theory-based
Yeah.
pattern. And for MCQs, I suggest that if you have completed review books by the end, even if you have not completed review books, if you even have 1 month, then you
Yeah.
can easily complete all the 3 review books.
Yeah.
If you sit for like 4 days continuously, we'll finish 1 review book. So finishing the review books puts you in a position of knowing a lot of stuff that is relevant for MCQs as well as for theory examination. It gives you a lot of diagrams to draw in anatomy. It gives you a lot of clinical cases in physio and biochem. So that's the way to go. First target the important things, then go for the non-important things. Non-important things you have to focus much more when you are reading for MCQ examinations. So that's the thing for any examination, actually, literally any examination. If you're saying
Yeah.
for NEET PG, there are some high yield topics which are much more important than other topics. So
True.
that's the way I scored, or I passed my first year university examinations. And there's not much to add to it. It's very basic. You just have to hit where the person is the weakest, and if you hit that properly, of course the general tips apply, like write properly, like
Yeah.
the presentation should be very nice if you are in a theory examination pattern. And of course in MCQ you have to manage time is the best resource for MCQ.
Yeah.
If you are the master of time, then any examination which is MCQ based you will be the master of it. So for managing MCQs, what I did in first year and here also, I solved a lot of questions from Marrow, which are again not sponsoring this video, so, or any video for that matter. So what happens is that in Marrow there's this time limit. It just runs
Yeah.
out before the question disappears. Okay, so you have that pressure okay, before the question goes, I have to answer this question. So that's the way you can train your mind ki whenever you're solving any question outside Marrow, then you will see that virtually you will see that timer going off.
Yeah.
So that's the way you can train your mind, or else you can just sit for 30 minutes and just try to maximize the number of questions that you're doing and do these 30-minute sessions for 3 times. So you have 1.5 hour of entire productivity and entire focus, and in that you will try to solve as many questions as you can without getting bored. So those are a few things for MCQs. MCQs review books are the best. Again, no need to read very big books because you will get lost
Yeah.
in the forest being too close to the trees.
And you mentioned about MCQs. So are these MCQs more clinically oriented, like a patient comes to you and stuff like that, or they're just straightforward? If you know it, know it. If you don't know it, you don't know it.
Okay, so it depends upon the subject
Okay.
on which we are talking about. If we are talking about anatomy, there's not much clinical that they are asking usually to us.
Okay.
Most of the times the anatomy questions are straightforward.
Okay.
like what is the blood supply to the head of the femur.
Okay. So if you
So
know
if
it,
you know
you
it, then
know
you know
it,
it.
and
If
if you
you
don't know it, you don't know it.
It's a one liner. If you don't know it, then you'll have to ask somebody else without being caught. So that's the thing. And in physiology, in pharmacology, pathology, in this clinical subjects, we mostly have clinical
Wow.
cases as MCQs. So they won't directly ask about Hodgkin's lymphoma.
They will
They will
present a
they will
patient.
tell
Yeah.
that, yeah, they will present a patient, and then you probably have to tell what type of it is, whether nodular sclerosis, mixed cellularity, so stuff like that. But those questions, this is a particularly bad example to give because it's a difficult type of question. Not
Yeah.
everybody practices this kind of questions. So something less similar like anemia, they will give the MCV, MCHC values,
Yeah.
and you have to say, okay, this is megaloblastic or microcytic,
Yeah.
and the causes will be listed. So that's the way to go. Yeah, that's how we have it. Most likely we'll have clinical cases in path and pharma in my college at least. University examinations, they give a mixed pattern. I don't really know how second year university examinations looks like because
Yeah.
fourth sem wala hu main. So it's yet once I gave the examinations, however, and luckily I hope I passed them.
Good luck to you.
So I will make a video about how. Thank you. How I am not really sure will they take the examinations
Oh yeah.
offline at least
Because quarantine.
because of everything that is going on.
Yeah.
So that was it for today. You can watch the next part, which will be released next week, or if you're watching late, just check out the description and you'll find it. If you gained anything from this podcast, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you absolutely loved it, just smash that subscribe button. Just smash it. Okay? And as always, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay mad, but just about medicine.